peace, and justice for all.
All right, we are on to item B, Superintendent's Report. Item number 1, Instruction.
In your board packet, you should have the school improvement plans for all of the buildings for the schools in Kankakee School District 111. The Illinois State Board of Education sets forth a number of requirements as part of the application process for all state and federal grants, including Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, IDEA, ESSER II, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, ARP ESSER 3, Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief 3, and Foster Care Transportation Plan. The process is streamlined into Consolidated District Plans application. This is an annual procedural approval by the Board of Education. The Consolidated District Plan groups a set of questions that are required for each of the above listed grants. It includes an outline of school district accountability and compliance. This asks us to document the following items: assurance of the use of local funds in an equitable manner, assurance of the processes by which needs are identified, assurance of consultation with stakeholders, including non-public schools, assurance of quality educational programming, assurance of compliance with all grant requirements. Additionally, the plan asks for the general intention of use of grant funds in the 2022-2023 school year, a description of needs assessment for each grant, identification of general procedures for supporting students who are identified at risk in general education environment, and some additional Title I and IDEA specific requirements. It is the recommendation that the board approves the District 111 Consolidated District Plan for the 2023-2024 school year. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? There are no questions. Number 2, Finance. Mr. Dan Savage.
Good evening, everybody. I have a short presentation here for you on our fuel procurement process. We have a recommendation to accept a bid from L1 Oil Company. This first slide is just the project background. There's links in there, and you have that in your board packet for the scope of the document, the raw data. From the notes here, our financial estimates are based off of fuel prices from March 9th, 2023. All 3 vendors can provide a storage solution themselves, and most recommended installing 2 2,500-gallon tanks. And all vendors plan to monitor fuel levels by monitors installed on the tanks. Next slide goes into our pricing. So as you'll see, there's a few different things to look at when we're looking at pricing. On the price per gallon, L1 is at $347.55 with 2 tanks. Glencoe was at $364.13, and Heritage was at $354.13. The next column, the storage pricing, L1 came in at $1,000. Glencoe was no charge, and Heritage was $13,606. The winter blend, the lowest price was L1 at 3.5 cents, followed by Heritage at 5 cents, and Glencoe at 15 cents. In our year 1 estimate, L1 would be $19,000 in savings with 2 tanks, and then in year 2, L1 would still have a $7,000 savings. So it's a recommendation of the administration that we accept the bid from L1 Oil Company. Any questions?
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Savage? There doesn't appear to be any. Thank you, Mr. Savage.
Thank you.
Number 3, personnel, Ms. Fountain.
So the district is still conducting interviews for transportation, for bus monitors, and also for bus drivers. So we are soliciting the support of the community. If you know of anyone, or if you are interested in becoming a bus driver or a bus monitor for Kankakee School District 111, we hold open interviews on Wednesdays afternoons, and we also have some evening interviews. So if you know of anyone that is looking or would like to be a bus driver or a bus monitor, we do ask that you contact the school district. Also, before you tonight for approval is the clerical contract. We did open, the clerical staff requested that we open the contract a year early, and we did grant that request. We have been going through negotiations for probably the last 4 to 5 months, and in your packet, you have the clerical negotiation contract that we're asking, or that the administration is asking you to approve on this evening. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? There are no questions. All right. We are now on to item E, Principal's Report. Tracy Steele, Principal, Avis Huff Academy.
Good morning.
Good morning. You've been here all night?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a short presentation for you.
Good evening, and welcome to Avis Huff. I'm Tracy Steele, and I'm the principal here. I want to especially thank you guys for coming out tonight for this board meeting. I want to especially thank the board members, Madam Wells, Superintendent Walters, parents, and students. Last but not least, I would like to acknowledge my staff who joined us tonight. And we'll get on with the presentation. Again, thank you and enjoy.
So we have a few staff members in the audience. Go ahead and stand. Thank you for coming. Outstanding staff. I've listed a few on the screen. Everyone couldn't be here. But I'm going to let you hear from a parent about our wonderful staff.
Can you tell us about the interaction you had with the staff while here at Avis Huff?
The staff here have been remarkably on board on every aspect of my child, hands-on, listening, interaction face-to-face, all of that. If there's something that needs to be addressed, I'm going to fight about it. And I'm very impressed with the staff. Thank you.
So this year we had 2 building goals. Go ahead and give the staff a round of applause too. Thank you again for attending to our students. We had 2 goals this year set before us. One was being attendance and behavior. We realized we had to get more parent engagement, student engagement, community engagement, and we did this through meetings, celebrations, and field trips. We also increased our staffing recruitment this year for 22-23 school year. We were able to enlist a new instructor and 2 new substitutes we brought from outside of the district. And next year, we plan to bring 2 more LSB1 special education teachers, as well as a special education paraprofessional. So for attendance, some of the strategies we used to assist us with that was home visits, meeting one-on-one with parents, meeting one-on-one with students, incentives. We had an anonymous donor who donated monies to provide for Barber's Day for our students and staff. Behaviors, we looked at CHAMP's behavior management plans. We implemented those into our classrooms. We then adjusted our DPRs for the students and monitored them closely to improve when the behaviors improved. We adjusted them when they digressed. We adjusted those as well. Academics, we did consistency with up close and personal assistance for students, whether they had IEPs or not, which we believe equals success. So the main goal for attendance was to have at least 50% of our students to decrease their absences by 10% from the beginning of 2022-2023 school year, semester 1. And then for our behavior goal, we wanted students to move their attendance to more on track, more into the wanted attendance versus that of diswanted, not being here. So we needed at least 10% of our students to attend school by the second semester, ending of second semester or the school year. So here's our data. We use Panorama to track our attendance. We also use Skyward attendance and some other classroom reports that we use. Panorama, this report was given to us right after spring break, immediately after spring break. So semester 1, we have 14% of attendance. And then if you look over at semester 2, we increased that. We were at 14% semester 1. Semester 2, we went up to 29%. As far as the behaviors were concerned, semester 1, our kids was at 62%, and we increased the wanted behaviors up to 71%. And that's where we are now. Some of the successes, initiatives, and incentives, community and student engagement we did to help encourage students' behavior as well as their attendance in school. We provided services like getting the students, motivating them to come to school, taking them to driver's facilities so that they can become first-time drivers. We took them on field trips. During Black History Month, we were able to go down to the DuSable Museum to see the march so they can participate in that virtually. We had, again, like I said, the barber come to our school and provide haircuts for those students who didn't want to come to school because maybe their hair wasn't cut. So that was great. We also had our culinary arts students go out for 5-course meals. We taught them how to order off a menu. We taught them what fork to use, what dessert, cups, etc. And then we took them to see the arts. And then finally, we engaged them into math and science classes using math, weight, density, etc.
Wanting to come to school, wanting to do good work, not putting up a fight in school. His grades are coming up. Just the interaction all around it. Like, I really wish I would do this sooner, but exactly, But I feel the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Tracy Steele, and I am Avis Huff.
Well, thank you, Ms. Steele, for this wonderful presentation. I think it gives us a good idea of what you're doing at Avis Huff. I did have a couple of questions for you.
Come back up.
My question was, and I'm glad to see that you're focused on attendance, because you can't teach someone who's not before you, unless, of course, it's a LAA day. But what do you find to be the barriers that your students need to overcome to attendance?
One of them was basically relationship building, trusting that we care. Some of them face challenges with home environment, some things that they needed to take care of at home. So we provided transportation for students. We provided clothing for some students. Haircuts was a huge thing. Breaking down some of the barriers of who's going to be here and who's not going to be here, and what the environment was like. And so we really focused on that communication piece of loving on the students as they were ours, and communicating with the families.
Okay. I do a lot of reading, and one of the things that I have read over time is that a child needs 5 adults anytime in their life to give them uplift and to actually help them understand that they belong and that they matter. So the more people, as you said, love on these children, the more likely they are to come out of the environment that caused them to have the intensity of an Avis Huff. And the last time I was in this building, it's been a while, I talked to a young lady who was graduating, and she said to me, if I had this when I started, I would have done so much better. So hold on and keep going. It looks like you're headed in the right direction. And I just want to say one other thing. It takes a principal 5 years to really show that growth and show that movement in a building. So hang in there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions?
Anyone else? Mr. Williams?
Around how many students you have in the building?
Our enrollment changes from day to day because we service all the schools. Our last enrollment was 32. We have some students that are on there where they're there, but maybe we're servicing them in a different capacity. So that number fluctuates.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Mr. Boland, did you have your hand up?
I did, and Mr. Williams asked my first question. Thank you. In terms of the enrollment, that's your last enrollment, the attendance of 29, 30%, is that what I understand in terms of what your figures are?
I'm sorry?
You indicated that attendance had gone up from 19% to 29%, I think?
From 14%.
14%.
Yeah.
So that means roughly you have 10 to 15 kids in the classroom or in the building on a daily basis?
About 10 to 18 on a daily basis, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's just needed clarification there. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I did have one other question. Did anyone else have a question before? What is DPR?
DPR is our behavior reports that we use for students. They are monitored by the teacher,
Okay,
individualized.
Y'all like those acronyms, educational acronyms. Special ed went to spec ed and I got lost. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, and now we're on to item F, public comments. Frankie Jackson, you want to come forward and have a seat? and I'm going to read the public comment guidelines. The president will recognize members of the audience who wish to make comments to the board. Any topics related to school district business, the Board of Education will take all comments under advisement without discussion, which means the board will not respond tonight. If a member of the public raises an issue or concern that requires follow-up, the board president or superintendent will do so in a timely manner. Please give your name, direct your comments to the president. All comments are limited to 5 minutes. All individuals are to conduct themselves with respect and civility toward others. Ms. Jackson.
I just stated, my name is Frankie Jackson. And I just had some comments I wanted to make. People are aware of some things that I have had to endure recently, along with my child at Kennedy. Now more than ever, the safety of our children in the school environment should be a priority for our and all schools in the school district.
Excuse me, can you talk in the mic? Scoot it over the other way a little bit, there you go.
Not just for active shooters, but bullying, predators, and most importantly, just the learning environment to learn. Unfortunately, I have recent personal experiences that show that this is not the case, specifically for my daughter and other students attending Kennedy Middle School. My 11-year-old daughter has had to endure more this past school year than I did in 12 years of attending school. It worries and scares me to think what she has to endure every day. And I'm scared that if some changes are made at Kennedy or within the school district soon, we're going to fail our children. There are 3 specific things that I need to be brought to everyone's attention. My daughter's class is currently on her 9th substitute teacher this school year. This lack of structure and consistency has resulted in a significant number of children in this class that are simply out of control, who consistently act out and suffer no consequences for their actions. How do I know? Which leads me to my second point. My daughter was verbally and physically attacked by the same bully in her class on 5 different occasions. And these are just the ones I knew about. Before she was removed from the classroom, not just the school, but the classroom, my question is why? Why did my daughter have to endure 5 situations? Her attacks on my daughter were deliberate, violent, and I thank God that they weren't worse than they could have been. If it weren't for other students intervening, it very well could have been worse. My question again is why? It was acknowledged by the principal and the assistant principal that this student has been and continued to be a problem, but since there were no consequences to her actions, she was allowed to continue this behavior and bully my daughter. Where's the no bullying policy that's being preached? Where's the no bullying that I see on the signs and posters throughout the school? How is it that the very same principal that's listed as one of the point of contacts for bullying is who I was in contact with regarding this situation? My last point is one of the reasons that my child was being bullied was due to her speech impediment. She stutters. She's supposed to have an IEP for this, but when I inquired about the status of her IEP, I was told that she had not been receiving it for the majority of the school year, and they didn't get someone outsourced until January. Yet again, there was no communication to me as a parent until I started asking questions as a result of everything else that was transpiring. I asked to shadow my daughter at school one day to observe the school environment for myself, and what I witnessed was shocking, appalling, and disgusting, and significantly worse than what I had imagined. It brings tears to my eyes every time I think about what my daughter has to endure every day in school because of the inconsistent environment. When I asked if I could have my daughter move to a classroom where there was a regular teacher, actual certified person, consistent, I just wanted someone consistently in there. I was told that there weren't any. And I'm wondering, how is that possible, to not have a teacher in the school that she can be moved to? So I feel like I need to say something because I feel like my daughter's being failed. She's not safe in one of the places she should be, And as a concerned parent and taxpaying citizen, I'm hoping that we can make some action and change and not just getting the same excuses that I've been receiving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to item G, board report, board president's report. Well, I'm happy and sad to report that this is my last formal board meeting as a member of Kankakee School District 111 Board of Education. We'll be welcoming a new board member on May 2nd. She's present if you want to stand so people can meet you, Susanna Barones. My prediction was correct. I told her at the debate or at the forum that I had met my replacement. And I was fine with that. When I sat back and I thought over my career as a board member for Kankakee School District 111, I have been on this board since 2005. And I realized that that was like a whole kid. And then I realized it actually was a kid in my life. My nephew William was born in January of 2005. I joined the board in April of 2005, and now I'm leaving in May of 2023. And he's graduating Kankakee High School in 2023, on time. It was a little touch and go there for a minute. I just want to, before I take my leave, thank my fellow board members, Jess Gavin, for his passion about athletics and his passion about this community, Mary Archie for her passion about children and the love that she has for doing what's right for everyone on every occasion, no matter how much people might disagree with her. Chris Boland for his inquisitive mind and his stickler for being a stickler for the details and counting every penny we spend. Deb Johnston for being a voice for the teachers. She has always made that very clear when she sat on this board, that she was very concerned about how our teachers were faring in the classroom. Darrell Williams for his calm advice, always telling me to climb down off the wall. And now my time is up. So I can't say anything about Tracy Varane. The fashion maven of Kankakee School District 111 Board of Education. You want to look? Watch her. But no, Tracy has brought a fresh perspective. And I look forward to what the next board will do. This is difficult work. This is not easy. And the thing that people don't realize, and I want to say this very clearly, no one is compensated in the state of Illinois for being a Board of Education member. This is volunteer work. You pay to run, you walk your little feet off trying to talk to people to get them to the polls, and then you see a voter turnout of what, 29%? And that really makes me sad, because that is your opportunity to really state to the community how you want your district run, and to let the people who are trying to lead the district know that you're paying attention. So I wish you all well. I admonish all of you all to participate in as much Illinois Association of School Board activities as you can. The dinner meetings are open to all board members, not just your designee that is the liaison to Illinois School Board Association and the November meeting. And, you know, I was just thinking, because I was thinking over my behavior, and I was like, why am I so, like, impatient? And I realize it's because I actually have read ahead. I have been reading about education, discussing education, and concerned about education really all of my life. My father, who was born in 1925, left school at the age of 9 to go into the cotton fields of Mississippi. He ran away from home at the age of 14 because he was not filling those cotton fields. He joined the Navy and served in World War II at about the age of 18. Along the way, he could not read because he stopped going to school in 3rd grade. He was raised by his grandmother, whom I don't know when she was born, shortly after the end of slavery, early 1900s, not a long time after the end of slavery. So she did not receive any formal education. My mother left school in 7th grade because her mother had passed away and her father abandoned her family, and she raised 6 of her siblings. And she worked as a maid in a butcher shop in Paducah, Kentucky, where she was born, or where she was raised. Neither of them got to finish high school until they were both adults. And so in my home, we were told, we weren't told. It was just expected. I don't ever remember my parents arguing with me about going to school. It was just an expectation. When my mother became ill when I was in the 6th grade, I knew that I still had to help my sister and my other siblings get ready to go to school, and we went to school every day. And my mother was in the hospital for over 6 months battling kidney disease. And she survived until I was 29 years old. But my point is that my parents knew that education was the one thing that could lift our family up. And so all of us went in different directions, all of us did different things, none of us got in any serious trouble, and all of us graduated high school. And I was the first to graduate college in my family's line. My sister was the second, and she holds a doctoral degree. And so I was like, where did all this knowledge, and I was thinking about where my body of knowledge comes from. So while she was in grad school, we would be talking about the papers that she was writing. We would be talking about the classes that she was taking. We would be talking about educational philosophy. I'm in the kitchen, I'm doing dishes, I'm hollering at my kids, and I'm talking to my sister, and I'm like, I learned a lot. I could have probably, took the courses with her and passed because we spent a lot of time talking about that. And when Chris was arguing for the library, which I don't miss at Kankakee High School, because I'm going to tell you it was the worst high school library I'd ever seen in my life. I came from Eisenhower High School, go Cardinals, and when I walked into their school library, I was in awe. It was probably about 3 times the size of this room, and it was filled with books, and our library was nothing like that. So good luck with that library thing, Chris. I hope that if you bring it back, you bring also teachers who love to use the library. Because when we got onto that question in the forum, and I went and talked to the lady who asked me the question later, one of the things she said was the teachers took them to the library, and the teachers taught us how to love books. But you have to love students to want to love them into reading. It's just a very yin-yang kind of thing. So I'm wishing you well. I'm going to be watching from the cheap seats now. And I think that you'll do okay because you have people who are passionate about education, who want our populace to be educated and realize that the actual reputation of this community rises and falls on the products of Kankakee School District 111. So congratulations to Susanna. Good luck to the board when you all are seated. And I look forward to critiquing your work. No, I'm kidding. I look forward to enjoying my retirement from this job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Finance Committee Chair Report, Jess Gathing.
Finance met, we did not have a quorum. Mr. Savage spoke this evening about the fuel thing, fuel that will be passing, the low fuel bid that will be passing this evening. That's it for finance.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gathing. All right. We're on to item H, action items. Can I have a motion to approve the action item agenda?
I'll make that motion to approve the action item agenda.
Moved by Mr. Boland. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so you down there whispering with your mic over there?
Actually, I should say.
No, not you. You're fine.
The consent item agenda.
The
not-
consent agenda.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Second by Johnston, because she's spoken to her magic mic. All right. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Archie. Bolin.
Aye.
Gathing.
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Verret.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes. And that motion carries. We're on to item I, action items. Number 1, approval of lease to 43 Meadowview Court, Kankakee, Illinois, for the Transition Center and Special Ed Department. I believe that Ms. Fountain has some items to go over with us. There was a sheet that was put down for you to go along with. Ms. Fountain.
I'm just going to ask Mr. Savage if he will come up as well. So I just want to look at and review the transition site timeline. In September 8th, 2022, there was an email that was sent, and the summary was the SPED team was given parameters for the transition site. On September 29th, 2022, a rubric was created based on the conversation with team members. October 13th, 2022, there was a meeting with the Realtor Peter Grant Building to develop a transition program. On October 18th, 2022, there was a property visit. The SPED staff team viewed 4 sites with the Realtor Peter Grant. On January 10th, 2023, Ms. Lee Cordetti created a timeline update for the sites that were visited, the 4 sites that were visited. On January 26th, 2023, at the finance meeting, the board determined the priorities for future capital projects. The transition site will use a portion of the bond money for the cost of the transition center. And that was on, again, the finance meeting on January 26th, when the board put in priority what were the projects that they would like for us to take on. On February 1st, 2023, there was a shared document with a shared transition rubric, and it was updated by Dr. Walters. On February 9th, 2023, the long-term financial meeting with DLA, it was discussed all future projects, including the transition site. On March 14th, there was a site visit at Meadowview Center. March 28th, 2023, tour of the Loves Building. Several admin along with a board member toured the site. On March 31st, 2023, there was a transition site Zoom call. Cabinet, the special ed team, and the business office discussed plans and any questions people had on the transition site. And then also on March 31st, The transition site estimated cost document was created. The document shared with Advan and DLA to determine approximate costs for the transition site. The next steps that are needed, number one, there should be a discussion around the vision for the transition planning for students. What is the board's vision for the transition career life development? Do you want the site to support career development across the district? Do you want the social activities to be held at the transition site? For example, adult prom. Do you want to create a work site for high school students? And what services do you want to be provided at the transition site? The board provides if the board can provide a recommended timeline going forward, when would you want students to be located in the new transition site? And then the board provides cost parameters. Leasing for 6 months with a discussion to purchase. What is the maximum amount per month that the board is willing to lease? Does the board prefer long-term leasing? And does the board prefer short-term leasing with an option to buy after further board discussion?
All right, it's open to the board for discussion, I believe. Do you all have any questions for Ms. Fountain or Mr. Savage?
I do, but I'll defer to the other board members first. Maybe they'll have the same questions.
Now, why would we break up the Chris goes first thing?
Because I'd like to defer to the other board members first.
All right, does anyone have anything for Ms. Savage, Mr. Savage, or Ms. Fountain?
What would be
I
the
didn't mean to
cost?
marry you all.
What would be the cost to lease the entire space?
What, estimating the cost between $19,000 and $22,000 a month?
19 to 22,000 a month?
Yes.
And is that price set in stone, or is that still negotiable?
No, that's still negotiable.
Okay. So, okay, another
Ms.
question.
John?
Another
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry, you have something else, Darrell?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Mr.
that's
Williams?
square footage what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, 12,368 square feet approximately.
And around what, right now is around what, 22 a square foot?
Yes.
And we're trying to get that down to hopefully what, 18, 20?
Yeah, that would be ideal, but that's still negotiable.
Okay.
That's a lot of money. I mean, per month, that's a lot of money. Is this going to be a transition building for all special ed? So would all special ed be in the same building? Is that what I've read somewhere?
So no, it's not for all special ed students in the district. It is for our transition students who are adults, and the purpose of the space is just not for classroom spaces, but part of the transition program is to help those students be able to transition to adult life without that much of assistance. So in that transition site, it's just not classrooms, but there would be an area for kitchen and for cooking to make sure that those students, the adults, learn how to cook and be able to care for themselves. There is room for, say for instance, with making a bed, how to make a bed, how to do dishes, how they will conduct themselves as adults in regular life. Also, it's a part of work opportunity. So we're going to use part of the space to create work opportunities for our transition students to be a part of, so that they can make things, they can create things that people can come in and purchase and buy. So it's just not a space for classroom, but it is helping our students transition into adulthood and learning the life skills that they need to be successful in life.
I totally understand that. I'm very familiar with the transition program. I visited the transition program at the Presbyterian Church that was named after Mary Johnston. Is that name going to follow her? We'll worry about that later. Anyway, how many students are in the transition program?
I believe the special ed department, how many hours? 22?
22? And how often does I mean, obviously it'll change, because they have 4 years in it, right? After, okay, so and then after they finish high school, then they have 4 years to still be in the transition program, correct? All right, I just wonder how bad the church is that we have to go and spend $22,000 a month. I mean, is it really that poor of a site that we just cannot do anything with it? I visited the site, I've been there, so I kind of know what it looks like. I know what's available to them. I know that everything you said, they have the ability to work on that. Plus, it's downtown. They've got banks. They've got the courthouse is right there. They've got, the one out in Meadowview is right next to the theater also. But there's so much more that they can just walk to out on Court Street. Then they don't have that availability in Meadowview. They'd have to be transported.
Which building are you talking about?
Okay, I'm sorry,
Which
Jabril, you
building?
have to speak.
The
so
one-
I
everyone
was asking,
can
which
hear.
building are you talking about?
In Meadowview,
You said Court Street.
well, that's Presbyterian Church, where it is right now. It's right on Court Street.
That's not recorded, is it?
Yeah,
It
it's
is?
on Court Street.
Okay.
I've been there. It's been there. I mean, it's back, if you go to the back door, but it's Court
Yeah,
Street.
okay.
So I just wonder if that can be altered a lot less, with a lot less money than the $22,000 a month.
Okay. Does anybody else? Mary? I'm sorry, Miss Archie?
What are our chances on just building a building? Instead of all this renting and you got to rebuild a building, seems like to me anyway. So why don't we just get some property and build it or add it on to the school?
From my understanding, that if we build something, a referendum has to take place, and that would, again, have to allow for a vote from the community, and that would have to happen at the next election, in an election. And right now, we feel that the site that our students are currently at is not conducive for them. It's just not, it's not ideal. I mean, we have the site, we're using it, but it's not ideal. But your question was about the building, and we do have to, there will have to be a referendum in order to do that, which is 2 years away.
Okay, so we need to act now, but we still could be looking into building one, because 10 years paying this, we could have built one.
And part of the option is lease to own to buy, so that we could buy that later on and make it what we need for it to be for the district. But there will be an option for lease to buy.
Good, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson. Can I go to Mr. Gavin?
This was supposed to have came through finance a little bit ago, and we didn't have a quorum, and I think at that same night, I think it was canceled. We were supposed to take a site visit or whatever, and this was the first that I had heard about it. And here on your timeline, it says you guys, you had you had site visits with realtors and things, and now you want to push it through. Now you're asking us to vote tonight to push this through,
So,
and nobody's been through. What board member has been there to take a look at this?
Ms. Verrett was part of she was a board member that took a look at it. We also had our special education staff, and it's not something that we're just trying to push through without any notification. There was an email sent to the board in 2022 about the whole transition site, and then there was a finance meeting that took place in January, where the board prioritized those projects that they felt that the district needed. And at that point, at that finance meeting, we talked about the tennis courts, we talked about the transition site. All of those were priorities that the board set for building, for using the bond money. So administration is going by board direction because we were directed that those it was 3 or 4 things that were priorities.
It was the playground too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the playground and student, yes. And so that was one of the priorities that the board set for the administration to look into for the site.
I know I'm getting old, so I might be forgetting, but some things you do remember, and I don't remember that.
Well, I'm sorry you don't remember it, Jess, but it was a board meeting where all of us were at, I'm sorry, all of us were at the high school,
I don't remember.
and we were writing on the whiteboard.
You wasn't there.
Dr. Walters
he
was
wasn't
writing on the whiteboard.
You wasn't there, Jess.
Jess, you weren't
Jess
there.
wasn't there?
You wasn't there.
He joined
Okay.
us by phone.
He was on phone, though.
Okay, you were over the phone. Sorry. It was while you were in the hospital, I believe. I'm sorry. I overspoke.
I said I was old and I didn't remember.
Okay. You assisted on, and Chris chaired the meeting because I asked you who was chair, and Chris was chair. Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Johnson, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I did. I see that you visited right across the street from the high school. I'm assuming that's that old furniture store. Was it not available to rent out or purchase? Because closer to the school would be ideal. I don't know, I have another question. Does the transition team know that this is happening? Are they aware?
The special ed department, they took the site visits with us. They also took the site visit at the other locations to see which one was more conducive for a transition site.
So the person in charge of the transition, that Penny Sylvester, she knows about this?
Well, I don't know if
Yes.
Penny, she was
Yes.
part of it, but also the director of special ed and also the supervisor for special education was part of it.
I think we need to hear from Chris now.
I'm sorry.
Can I speak, please?
Okay, I'm sorry.
She isn't.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Jesus. Ignore.
It's like a lot of conversation going on down there. Okay. Did you have something else? Because Ms. Barrett has not spoken.
I'm done.
Let Ms. Brent speak, that's fine.
So, I just wanted to bring us back to speed about the transition site and the first time we ever talked about it. This is not something new that we spoke about. Actually, I'm the board member that brought it to light over a year ago. And the first time I brought it to light in closed session, I said that we needed to talk about the transition site. We agreed at that time. Some board meetings passed, and we didn't talk about it. I brought it up again. And one of the reasons why I brought it up is because I go there daily. And so it's kind of painful to listen to this conversation because what typically happens for special education students is they're kind of pushed to the back burner a lot when it comes to their needs. And so we're talking about a site that they're currently in that's not safe. One of the reasons why it's not safe is because we rent it out from another institution. And those people are not our employees. We have no control over them. We don't know who comes in and out the building. We can't dictate when they come and when they can leave. We have no information about them. And so we're putting our students at risk every day. Also, we're putting those parishioners at risk because there's things that could happen. They could walk by one of the people and knock them over. And then we're at a liability. For safety reasons, it would be more conducive if we had only our employees in the building. And so the second thing is that the building, just the physical needs of the building, does not meet the needs of our students. There's a restroom in the facility that's not even up to code for a wheelchair. So there's a student that's in a wheelchair who can't go to that bathroom. He has to go all the way to the other side of the building just to use the bathroom in an area that's not really part of the area that we rent, that we lease. because it's not to code. When he does go in the bathroom, he can't close it because his wheelchair won't fit. There's also the needs for special needs, for special education for this situation. There isn't enough space to do what they need to do. So we talk about this often, and we hear this a lot. I hear it a lot about on social media. I hear it from parents. I hear it from teachers. I hear it from our board members, and they say we have to prepare our students for the world. But oftentimes we forget about the said students and preparing them for the world. And so the site that they're in right now is not conducive to prepare them for the world. They need something a little different than other schools need, because as a special needs person, you might need to know how to make your bed. You might need to learn how to wash laundry. You might need to learn how to use a microwave and things like that. These are things that sometimes we take for granted because we can do it, and they can't sometimes. So if I can be perfectly honest, it's painful to hear things like, do we really need all that money for them? Can't we just build onto that site? Let me tell you another thing about safety. The building is on Court Street, which is not safe. If one of the students decides to leave out the building for whatever reason, they're 2 steps into ongoing traffic. What they need is a space and then another space in front of them so you have time in case they do leave the building, because they could be harmed. They can walk right into ongoing traffic. There's not even a stoplight right there. Also, there has been times when homeless have walked in the building. And like I said, we can't control that because that's not our building, that's not our staff. They have the right to do what they want to in that part of the building. It's not really set aside, set apart, because it's really a church. And the church is an old church that was built over, I think it's over 100 years old. And so you have to understand that that building was not made with the special education department, Kankakee School District in mind. It's a beautiful church, but it's not made for that in mind. I think the people in the building are doing amazing with absolutely nothing. If I could just be honest, they're doing amazing. The students are happy because they're happy, because they try to make them happy, but they don't like the space either. The first day I went into the building, I was kind of sad because the door paint was chipping. The sign, the Kankakee sign, you can't even read it because it's chipping. It's
Just neglected.
It's neglected. You know, it's an old church, and there's like a lot of old parishioners. And just from a church standpoint, you can only do as much as your parishioners get paid. So it's not like they can do more than what they can do. They're doing what they can with the parishioners they have. But what I want to say is that when we had this meeting initially in the finance meeting about this, we were talking about a couple things. And one of the things that was at the top of discussion was the tennis courts. And not that I don't think we need the tennis courts to be repaired, because we do. But if I have to weigh the options of that, and we're talking about kids who needing something academically as opposed to extracurricular, I would always choose academically first. I just would. And so these students aren't getting the basic needs. They aren't getting their basic needs not because of our lack of teachers or educators to do their job. They don't have the space. It doesn't work. So they have to make do to try to make things work. And that's not okay. It's just not okay. So we ask, why do we need all this space? And so I have a long, extensive history in mental health. And so one of the things that is always a plus is that you have the space that you need, because you can always do more. With time, everything grows, things change, and you always have the space to do what you need. And so we have to think about what we're trying to service and give these students as far as their needs. And can we do that in a space that's half the size? And can we do that in a space that we have to try to make do because this is what we want to give them? And if I can be honest again, I don't like that. I don't like the thought of that. I don't like the feel of that because that's not right. And so we need to give the same attention, the same enthusiasm, the same understanding, the same need to this department as we do the rest of the students. They're not separate. They're our students too. They're our students too. They don't get talked about a lot. They get pushed to the back a lot, but they're our students too. They're our students too. And so I did view the site. I viewed all the sites, every site that we were able to look at. I viewed all of them. And in my opinion, the Riverside site is the best site.
The Meadowview.
The Meadowview site, I'm sorry, is the best site. It used to be Riverside Building, so that's why I keep saying Riverside.
Still is.
It's the best site. We need to move fast because our students need to be there in the next school year. It would be painful to watch them go through another school year in the space that they're in now. And so I really hope that my fellow board members would understand that. The last thing I want to say is that we're talking about the price of the lease, and I think the Meadowview Center has been really generous to us. This is really not a buyer's market right now. If you're trying to buy a house right now, you might know that. And so they're being very generous to us with the price because I believe they want us to have it because they understand the need and what we need it for. And so I think that if we chose not to move on this now, that we could possibly, we would be doing our students a disservice, but we could possibly lose a site that is absolutely what we need. We walked in the building, and it's kind of like if you ever bought a house, people tell you when you walk in the building, you know this is right. This is it. This is the one. And you walk in there and you say, this is the one. This is it. And so we walked in the building, and just about everybody was like, this is the one. We looked at a lot of sites, and this is the one. This is the one we need. This is it. This is it. Yeah, this is it. Everything, this is what we need. And so I know it's easy to look at numbers and to look at, to look at those, and we need to look at those things, and I think we have done a good job of that. But there's more to it than just that. That's the responsible thing to do, and I think we're being very responsible, and I think we're getting a good price, and I think it's still negotiable. But I just would like I want us to be clear that we need to move like now because we're doing our students a disservice. We're possibly putting ourselves in a situation of liability, and the need is great.
Okay, is there any further discussion from the board? Mr. Boland?
I'm very sympathetic to what Ms. Verrett just said. I am not opposed to a transition site and a change in the transition site. But if you go through this timeline, yes, there was an email in September, but from that email, the board received not a speck of information. We still don't know what the parameters are for the site. We don't know how many square feet is ideal. We don't know how many square feet is absolutely necessary. So we don't know what spaces are needed and what the size of those spaces should be. We've never been given that information. That's okay. When it came to setting priorities in January, yes, we said that a transition site needed to occur. But we didn't say, because we still didn't know what the size of the transition site needed to be, and quite frankly, we don't know, other than what Ms. Verrett has said, what the deficits of the site at the Presbyterian Church are, and whether any of those could be corrected or all of those could be corrected. The problem is we're going to, from right now paying $1,800 a month for rent at the Presbyterian Church. I'm not sure that the staff that work at the Presbyterian Church site are so appalled at the condition, but maybe they are, but I haven't heard from them. And I don't think any other board member other than Ms. Ferret has heard from them. And the next thing we know is we are presented with a lease proposal, not a negotiation. We're not involved in a negotiation. What we have to vote on tonight is, are we going to spend $22 a square foot for the next at least however many months? We don't know how many months, quite frankly. We have no knowledge. We're presented with the purchase price that, quite frankly, shocked me as being the potential purchase price. I do know something about real estate in this community. I've rented real estate. I have assisted clients in renting real estate, and I can tell you that I don't know of any space in this town or in this school district that you would pay $22 a square foot for. I rented space in the executive center until 2 years ago, and my rent was not close to $22. It's closer to half of that. So I don't think this is a good price. I think this is an incredibly exorbitant price. To go from spending $22,000 to $260,000 in a year for space, but that's not all the cost, because we don't know what the build-out's going to cost, and we have to pay for that under the terms that we're being asked to vote on tonight. So if you're talking about 12,000 square feet and the cost of remodeling is $100 a square feet, you just added another $120,000 onto it. And quite frankly, I don't know where this money's coming from. We have a lot of needs in special education. We've got some compliance issues. We've been told that. We have to restructure the special ed department to assure that all of the children and all of the students in the special ed department are getting their needs met in accordance with the law. IEPs are mandatory. Compliance with IEPs are mandatory, and I believe there's a substantial question as to whether we're in compliance there. I don't know where we're going to come up with $220,000 or $300,000 for spending on this particular space. You know, we own some space that we're not using. We need to, I believe, have the architects look at that in accordance with the needs of the transition center. There's a building in Aroma Park that we're leasing. And we're not leasing that for $220,000 or $22,000 per square foot, or $22 a square foot. The questions that are asked here are great questions. But this is the first time we've been asked to consider these questions. And we do need to give a lot of thought and a lot of input and pursue a lot of information. When I was first confronted by the email of a couple weeks ago of asking about or proposing this, along with combining with another project that I had no idea we were talking about, I asked a lot of questions. I sent them to the administration. I've not gotten any answers to any of those questions, except for this proposal to spend $22,000 a month. I have no idea. The questions I had, I believe, were legitimate, they were serious, and they were substantive. And I did expect to get answers. And what I got was, well, we told you in September. Yeah. And I acknowledge there's a need for a new transition site if we can't come in compliance with the existing one. No question. And I'm willing to spend the time it takes to come up with a solution to that problem so that the issues that Ms. Ferret has raised can be solved. We do owe that to these students, just like we owe it to every other student in the district. But under these circumstances, with no knowledge, and then being asked to vote on a lease, because that's what the motion would be, that's what the proposal is for the administration, to vote on a lease of $22 a square foot. I don't think anybody is in a position to do that with the knowledge that we don't have. So with that, I'm going to move to table this proposal until we have sufficient time to assure that it's the only and the best proposal that we can pursue. And that's my motion.
Is there a second for Mr. Boland's motion?
Second it.
We have a motion and a second to table item number 1. Are there any questions? Mr. Williams?
Yes, as far as the foot, how is that gonna get paid for? The 22,000, what is that coming out of?
That would possibly come out of IDEA funds?
Possibly.
Idea funds?
Yes.
And if we do the lease, how long before we decide to buy it, and what are their negotiations on the price of to buy the building?
Yeah, we're looking at a 6-month lease to begin with.
And I'm talking about the purchase of the building. How are we doing? That price has to come down some.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I'm talking about, I know they started there, but what are we realistically talking about buying the building for that we'll be comfortable with?
I'm not comfortable having that discussion in open session
Okay.
Why not?
because it's not fair to the seller to have that discussion in open session. That's something that could be in closed
Okay.
session. So I'm,
Mr. Boland is correct.
Okay. I said okay.
No, I didn't say
I was asking
anything.
a
I was
question.
just like pausing.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I didn't mean, but
Okay.
I think that's the
Pause,
subject.
pause.
Yep,
Okay.
if we
Mr. Savage, do you have something else?
I'm sorry. Yes, if we did decide to purchase it, we'd use the bond money that we would go out for in the fall of 2023.
Okay, but the problem with that is that bond will be, we can't borrow again for another 4 to 5 years on that bond. So that bond money will be exhausted on this one project if we do what the administration is asking us to do. And we don't have that bond money yet. We haven't sold the bond, and we won't until sometime later this year if we sell it. Do we know how much we would get from the bond? It's talked between $3 and $4 million.
Yes.
So if that's what we get, and we spend X number to lease it, $133,000 to lease it for the first 6 months, and another $100,000 to build out, and that's way low. So if we spend if we spend $500,000 in the first 6 months of the bond, and we have to do the other project that we're doing on bonds, and that leaves, and we've already been told we have no money for maintenance going forward because of the other expenses that we've incurred, spending it all to purchase a building for any purpose, seems to me to be incredibly dangerous. We don't have the money to maintain our buildings if we do that. That's the purpose of the bond. Anyway, I think the motion to table is not debatable and not amendable, so I'm asking for a vote.
I have a question.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Johnson does have a question.
I do. I know that it's said that staff members and people have gone to these spots and looked at them. How many of us have gone to these? I wasn't even asked. No one gave me, hey, we're going to go look at these buildings. Would you like to come with us? No one asked me to do that.
At the last finance meeting, it was on the agenda for people to go take a site visit. That was part of the finance meeting, but there was not a quorum. People did not come to that particular finance meeting, but there was a schedule.
Is that the one that was canceled?
No, it's not the one that was canceled.
Well, because I've never seen, the last time I was in 43 Meadowview Center, it was a furniture store, and that was when I was in high school, a long time ago.
Yeah,
So, I can't, there's got to be a lot of a lot of construction inside that building to make it work for a site that would be good enough for the transitions. I would think. So that's just adding cost. But I would like to see this. I mean, if we call up and say, hey, let's go
Okay.
look at this, I would like to do that.
Deb, all right.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to
sorry,
ask
I
you,
just-
I'm going to ask you, because Mr. Boland reminded us that the motion to table does not
Okay, fine.
allow for discussion. And I did let you speak, but I'm going to ask you to let us vote on the motion to table. So at this time, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Bolin,
Aye.
Gathing,
Aye.
Johnston,
Aye.
Verret,
No.
Williams,
No.
Archie, Wells,
No. Motion to table fails. Back to the action item. Approval to lease 43 Meadowview Court, Kankakee, Illinois, for transition students and special ed. Can I have a motion?
Are we really allowed to ask any more questions?
I'm sorry.
Am I allowed to ask another question?
I'm sorry.
Am I allowed to ask another question?
We're on to a new motion, so yes.
Okay. As far as the church, when they're talking about rehabbing the church, we don't even have no idea what that would cost. Because some people were talking about, we just spending money in the church. We have no idea what that would cost us either, right? And also, we can't use the church in the evenings or in the afternoons, right?
That's correct.
So that's kind of like a moot point to spend a lot of money on something we can't use. You understand what I'm saying? So it comes down to the point where we have to get a new building and we can't continue to use a building that's not conducive.
Okay. I still need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Barrett. Is there a second? Second by Archie. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Gathing,
No.
Johnston,
No.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie, Bolin,
No.
Wells,
Yes, the motion carries. On to item 2, the ratification of the clerical contract. Ms. Fountain.
You have a copy of the clerical contract for the the negotiations for the clerical contract that was shared with you. Are there any questions?
Any questions about the clerical contract? No questions? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Johnston. Is there a second? Second by Archie. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Johnston,
Yes.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes. And the motion carries. Item number 3, accept Al Warren fuel contract bid for school buses.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Gathing, seconded by Archie. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie, Bolin,
Aye.
Gathing,
Aye.
Johnston,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes. The motion carries. Approval to purchase band instruments and accessories. Motion?
So
Can I have a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Moved by Barrett, second. Second by Ms. Wells.
Question?
Mr. Gathing?
It is our understanding that this is going out as a bid and only or what it's supposed to go out as a bid, or only one person has bid on it, or only one person has seen it. We have King Music and Veranda Music here in town.
Yes, we received one quote. It did not go out to bid.
How could we not go out to bid on an expenditure of $130,000 for goods? It's illegal. I mean, is there an exception that I'm missing here? Because I don't understand how this is even on the agenda.
No, there's not an exception that I know of.
Okay,
Motion to table.
second.
Okay, motion to table from Mr. Ganning, seconded by Mr. Boland. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll on the motion to table?
Williams,
Yes.
Archie. Bolin,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Wells.
Yes, and the motion to table is passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Savage.
On to number 5, approval to purchase 300 student desks from Midwest Educational Furnishing. And if the board please, I will combine that with number 6, purchase of 23 cafeterias tables from Midwest Educational Furnishings. So the motion should contain 5 and 6. 5 and 6. Moved by Archie,
Second.
second by Gavin. Williams, okay, I can't tell. Okay, people covering their faces and not using their mics. But why should we change now? All right. Is there any question?
I have a question.
Mr. Boland?
Was this bid?
No.
Move to table.
How much was it?
Excuse me?
What's the total?
Second.
I'm sorry, I thought we were waiting for a question. There were no bid? I'm sorry, I was waiting for an answer. I didn't hear it. My apologies. I am hearing impaired. I own that.
I move to table.
And I second.
Okay, move to table. Items number 5 and 6. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Archie. Bolin,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Wells.
No, because we're going to lose that price. But
So,
the motion to table carries.
But it's illegal.
So, approval of bid from R&R Construction to finish the tennis courts at Kankakee High School.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Gathering, seconded by Bolin. Any questions?
did this go out to bid as well?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure before we go to the next one.
Okay. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Bolin,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Archie. Wells.
Yes. The motion carries. Number 8, approval to submit a low-cost extension request for the Head Start, CRRSA, and ARP grants funds.
What is that?
Yes, Ms. Johnson?
You know I do not like acronyms. so
I didn't
don't-
write it, Ms. Johnson. I'm just
CRR?
reading it.
I know, I just want to know what a CRRSA and ARP
Okay,
is.
can somebody please translate the
So we're gonna let,
acronyms? Okay.
Ms. Powell? can
Ms.
you
Powell,
come
we-
in?
Could you come up,
we're
please?
gonna- we're going to really need you to come and use the mic. I do apologize.
It's the COVID funds.
Oh, okay. Your last one. Angela's on a roll. We need a book.
Good evening, Madam President, Vice President Williams, all of the board members. Good evening, Ms. Fountain.
Good evening.
So CRRSA stands for Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations.
And
That was the first choice, that was, I guess, on that, yeah.
Okay, and ARP?
Yes, American Rescue Plan.
Okay.
Well
And so
done.
these were funds that were given prior to my start with the Head Start program. And these are funds that we need to spend, and we needed to apply for an extension. And so we have done this with the Head Start program. We have close to, well, a little over $500,000. And so we need to expend these funds. They were not spent, and so we do have a couple of projects that we're hoping to get approved for. We have an extension. I'm sorry, did you want me to explain all of that? Or am I-
Yes.
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 Okay, sorry. And so we have two projects that we are waiting to get everything approved for. One is with the AC unit in the multipurpose room, and then the other is the Outdoor Education Learning Center. And so the funds were actually released in 2021, and so this is what those funds are going to be expended on. And so what we did, we applied for the extension, and we are hoping to get granted for up to a 12-month extension so that we could utilize these funds.
This isn't something that if we don't use it, we lose it, like the ESSER funds?
Absolutely,
It is
you're
the ESSER
correct.
fund.
We
It
will
is the ESSER
actually
fund.
lose the funds if we do not utilize them.
These are ESSER funds.
All right.
All right.
I'm sorry, did you say this, you said the one was for AC unit and the other was for outdoor or something you said?
Yes, so we are wanting to put an outdoor learning educational classroom outside. Yes.
I remember you said that.
I move to approve the request for to approve applying for the extension, short-term extension of the use of the funds.
Second.
Okay, moved by
Thank you, Ms.
Boland,
Powell.
seconded by Williams.
No, that ain't,
Okay.
Yes, it's okay.
changed my voice.
Yeah, no, y'all need to keep your hands off your face so I can see your lips moving. Yes, deaf people read lips. It's part of our communication habits.
go.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. Did you catch the names? All right. Madam Secretary, would you please call the rolls?
Gathing,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to number 9, approval of the 24 Consolidated District Plan. Can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the fiscal year 24 consolidated district plan involving a number of our buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Archie. Yes, she finally catches on. It's only been 4 years longer, 8. There we go. Anyway, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Johnston,
Yes.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes, and the motion carries. There is no old business, information and proposals. We're putting out a request for qualification for auditors. And then we had Head Start information and a budget update. Does anybody need any information on any of those? No?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, can I ask for it? If there's nothing further from the board, a motion to adjourn has been entertained by Mr. Boland. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Seconded by Johnston. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.
I can do